Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Matt. I'm gonna do a quick solo Hell Talk. Well, I say quick, but you know me. Um, but before it got too far down the road, I wanted to just get my personal thoughts and reflections on Adepticon 2025 for Heroclix. So, first of all, apologies if I repeat myself uh, in this, episode and from last episode when we were talking with Logan and the rest of the gang. Um, and then also apologies for if I talk myself into circles and I start rambling on about dumb stuff because usually I at least write down a list of topics that I kind of want to touch on. Um, don't have anything. Just sitting here and just ranting off the cuff. So I'm gonna try to go in chronological order, I suppose, of uh, of Adepticon of what we went through and what we participated in, um, and just go from there. So yeah, days 1 and 2 of Adepticon. The only thing that I signed up for, and then most of my other group that attended signed up for was supercharged sealed events. So the long and short of supercharged sealed events this year was that they kind of they were a little bit worse. I don't know how else to put it, but they were worse than previous supercharged sealed events of because of the fact that they were using collector's trove as a set. So for those who don't know, or for those who've never um, participated in a sealed game of collector's trove, but it's probably the worst sealed set that we've gotten in quite some time. I mean, generally speaking, every set has a figure that is, very high in point cost, and it's just mind-blowingly strong when you open it in a sealed game. Um, but Collector's Trove not only has that, they have more than one of those, and some of them share a name of Thanos, and and unfortunately, um, one of them is a common, and when you're dealing with a a 12 booster brick set where I mean the vast majority of bricks that I've opened had two common Thanoses in them. So on average, every pod of 8 players, when you're getting 8 packs of Collector's Trove, um, generally somebody is going to have a Thanos, if not one, if not more. So, um, unfortunately, the Spider-Verse set was overshadowed by Thanos, by Common Thanos, by the Chase Thanos, um, and and virtually also just by most of the super rares from Collector's Trove. A lot of them just outpower the on average the individual power that's coming out from the Spider Verse set. Not that there isn't good Spider Verse pieces, um, but that just there's just not that that beat stick potential, and this is also especially true because with supercharged sealed we're dealing with 400 point teams. So the argument, I mean, like I said, collector's trove people complained was already bad enough for 300 points sealed when teams were just common Thanos and potentially a couple characters on the sideline. Now it's 400 points, so now you have probably usually less characters on the sideline because there's only one pack of collector's trove, but you have another 100 points of just support characters that you've opened. um, so it just makes those teams a little bit more frustrating. Not saying those teams are unbeatable. I personally did beat two of them over the course of the weekend. Uh, but having also pulled two of them in different events, I can say that, the times when you pull them versus the times that you don't, the difficulty in getting your wins is is significant. It's very night and day. Thanos, is good. Thanos is extremely good, whether it be the common or the chase for sealed. It's almost too good. Um, so yeah, so like I said, unfortunately, that set was used for sealed. So the supercharged sealed experience was generally you either get a Thanos and you'll probably do well. I mean, I don't think I'm sure there probably was over the course of the weekend, but it would be, you know, most Thanos teams probably went 2-1, if not 3-0. Um, I doubt there would be very few that went, 1-2 or 0-3. But like I said, there probably was, but I personally didn't see one myself. Um, the other thing, like I said, yeah, it's Spider-Verse set was kind of like I said, overshadowed by that, um, but again, it was, you know, it just kind of turned it again into the Thanos squad. So I mean, there was a supercharged sealed event that a pod that we were in where 4 out of the 8 players pulled a version of a Thanos. So it was pretty wild. Um, uh, but yeah, um, uh, I myself got 2 first place finishes in a supercharged sealed event. Lo and behold, both times were with using a Thanos piece. Um, and then the other 2 finishes I got were second and third, I believe. I got second with a very solid team with Ulysses Bloodstone and basically just and friends. Um, but lost out to a Captain Universe. And then my other team was pretty dog water, pretty bad. But I just happened to be matched up to players who also had similar teams. So my team had the strategy of placing standard blocking terrain during game setup and then standing behind it with Grizzly and then just crossing my fingers and hoping that the the opponent's team didn't have anybody that had improved movement destroys blocking. That was pretty much it. And then every single game I won map and we played on an indoor map. I think it was the Guardian ship. And yeah, that was my strategy for a lot of stuff. I think Guardianship was the most common map that I either used or saw or or was forced to play on for Supercharged Sealed. And I don't know, there's probably a good reason. I mean, I like the map. And I especially like the map if you got pieces that work well on it, but it's just um I understand it's a very frustrating map to be on if you can't easily navigate the blocking terrain and walls, especially since there's no transition squares on that map, so you can place terrain virtually anywhere you want during game setup. Um, so I can see how it would be frustrating if you are unfortunate enough to basically just not pull the pieces that are able to navigate a map like that. Um, so yeah, like I said, I placed first twice. We had another player in our group place first once as well. So overall, our group, with three first place finishes, in a total of 4 supercharged sealed events, I think we did pretty well. I think our group is, I mean, you could argue that's luck because 2 times, we're with Thanos. So I'm giving you guys that. Thanos is good. Um, uh, but you still got to know how to play the game. So credit to where credit's due, especially for uh, the first place victory that I wasn't a part of. So other than that, let's see. Moving on, we have the 300 modern the tournament. So let's go over that. we can just, I suppose, just talk about each of the matchups that I had for each round. I may have gone over this in the last episode, but hopefully I can give a little bit more detail on it. But maybe not. We'll see. So round one, I was matched up against a player that was playing Black Lanterns, and I suppose I should also explain what I was using before I get into it. I was using um, Ghost Rider with the Dream Ruby, so it's the whole my name is Ghost Rider, and I have virtually the immune keyword because you're never going to attack me because off the gate, there's a 50%, yeah, because I'm playing Kree Soldier, there's a 50% chance that you're not going to hit me and you're actually going to hit yourself. And then I'm also playing Kevin, so that's virtually the only roll that I'm going to re-roll on my opponent's turn every turn if they do decide to attack Ghost Rider, which most players correctly never did. Um, but but yeah, so it's a bad idea to attack Ghost Rider, and those that did attack Ghost Rider um, quickly realized how much of a bad idea it is. And I'm not saying that any of the players I went against are smarter or whatever, dumber or whatever. You know what I mean? But it's just it's potentially a learning experience for those players that did decide to attack Ghost Rider. But like I said, most of them didn't. They quickly realized like, yeah, this is a guy that I'm just going to ignore the entire game, and just have to try to work my way around him. And I do think for the game's sake that that's kind of a problem. But if I got time at the end, I'll get more into that. So anyway, we go back. I'm facing against Black Lanterns. Um, Black Lanterns, I feel, are inherently not that great in modern age right now, because I personally think that the Bloodstone, the equipment, is a must play or an auto include in modern teams. I faced a lot of players um, over the over the course of 300 modern that I think I don't want to say most, but potentially most of them didn't were not playing Bloodstone. Um, and it it just I think really helped me out because a lot of times I want to pick. I have Cathan on my sideline. I want to choose Ghost Rider. Um, if I uh, if my opponent doesn't have Bloodstone, this makes it very easy for me to choose Ghost Rider because I can end my turn, on or adjacent to, you know, um, the the Black Panther herb, whatever that's called, um, or still use support with Kevin, uh, so that Ghost Rider is always on click number one. The and that's on top of steel energy working. It's just I think there's so many times that you're healing in the game of Heroclix for exactly one click that I think that Bloodstone is like I said, it's required for modern play. I understand plenty of people did well without it. Um, but personally, I think there's just so many effects that heal for exactly one click, or just so many effects that heal in general. Um, that Bloodstone being a global effect is just it's it provides more than 10 points of value virtually every game. So anyway, I'm up against Black Lanterns. Like I said, Black Lanterns want to heal. I'm playing Bloodstone. Uh-oh. Well, so Black Lanterns either don't heal or they heal one click less. So, obviously, I think I can't remember if I went first or second. Doesn't matter. In the end of the day, uh, obviously, Black Lantern's typical first turn is just, oh, like Necron has, Toweret and is going to use support on somebody. It's like, all right, cool, you heal one less. And then, all right, well, if he KOs something, he's going to heal. It's like, all right, well, you're going to heal one less. And um, there's a lot of game effects that would normally benefit Black Lanterns, a lot that just don't either benefit them at all, or it just barely changed the game state because of Bloodstone. So um, it was also a good learning experience, I think, for my opponent in that match because they weren't super familiar with how the placement of the Black Lantern Batman operated. So after the game, we you know made sure that we were on the same page of that, so they could do better in their uh, future rounds of the tournament. Um, so I didn't actually look up. Like I said, I don't have anything in front of me. I'm just ranting off the cuff, but I didn't look up records for any of my opponents at the end of the day. So I don't know how well or how poor or whatever. I don't know how well any of my opponents did at the end of the day, except for the ones that obviously made it to top cut. So spoiler alert, I made it to top cut. I placed fourth in the event. Um, so round one, I did win. They were one of the, like I said, they were one of the players who did attack Ghost Rider. I missed my first couple shape change attempts, 50-50, it misses every time. But eventually Ghost Rider did succeed, and and then once his character started basically hitting themselves, then I started basically getting that snowball rolling and just took the game from there. Um like I said, other stuff on my team was just the Perdegaton carrying up the Prime Elsa and using a trick arrow. Um, and oh man, I don't even know what my team was right off the bat. I should really get that in front of me. Let's get my team in front of me. Uh oh, HC unit says I need to log in again. Oh, boo. Um, let's see. I know. Let's see. It was Ghost Rider. Here we go. Here we go. All right, let's go. Yeah, Ghost Rider, Dream Ruby, Wonder Woman. That was my main other like kind of attacker. Wonder Woman with a long sword, the death metal Wonder Woman. Kevin with Tolerette, yep, of course. Elsa Bloodstone with Trick Arrow, of course. Kree Soldier with Universal Weapon, of course. I had Madison with the Bloodstone. I was the only one who played Madison, I think, in the entire tournament, if I remember the meta correctly. Um, which that was kind of surprising, but maybe others thought that Beetlejuice would be more prevalent, or maybe they just went the Space Ghost route. But went Madison because I only had 30 points left and I couldn't play Space Ghost in the Bloodstone. And Madison still gave me some perplex options because a few of my characters have the mystical keyword. And then, of course, I rounded off with Perdegaton, usual sideline of Fortify Rivalry. Of course, I mentioned Cathan. I have Ghost Rider on my sideline, obviously, as a pilot for the can use Ghost Rider. And then Mimic, of course, that's kind of an auto include, I think, for pretty much every sideline. And then Talret, as I mentioned. So, um, yeah, mentioned round one, won that round. Round two, I was up against a Prime Rogue, which that was Alex Mater, I believe. And yeah, that was Alex. And then his team was basically like a point denial team because Prime Rogue, well, it's very similar to Ghost Rider, but not in the sense that you can't attack Prime Rogue. It's just once Prime Rogue basically hits like twice, you're basically never going to KO her. And he got to that point. He hit my characters a couple times. I did misplay against him by uh, le- leaving some characters next to Ghost Rider while he had Time Breakers alive. Um, yeah, very quickly realized that if you are playing Ghost Rider, the first thing you should do is KO all of your opponent's time breakers as quickly as possible. You cannot leave one of them on the map because they will ruin your day and place somebody next to Ghost Rider one square away and then just annihilate them with Prime Rogue. So I made that mistake, but it was a learning experience. Learned that for my future rounds, and then uh like I mentioned, he was doing his point denial thing. So virtually the only thing I could really get was things that were not uh, Prime Rogues, and he had like the Legacy Daredevils, just some time breakers and things like that, and some equipment that dropped from other characters. Um, so I ended up winning that game only by 5 points. It was a very close game, uh, and it was like 50 to 45, I think, or 45 to 40. I can't remember. I should be looking at this, but I'm not. Um, so yeah, he did a really good job denying me points. Um, and I just barely edged it out by um basically KOing an extra tiebreaker. So, you know, it was definitely my closest match of the day. Even though I did have a tie in the day, that was not my closest match. Uh, I would say the one against Alex was my closest match. So barely won round two. Going into round three, this round three is the one that I tied in. Um, but only because a couple of things happened. Um, and I don't think that. So I was up against Caleb Reddick, and I don't think he would disagree with me when I said that I helped him out a lot during the game. Um, I was going first, so his initial defensive setup, that when he placed stuff wasn't good. And he said out loud like, "Oh, I don't think you can get me if I set up this way." And I just said, "No, I can get you. Like change the way that you're setting up." I didn't tell him how to set up, but I was like, don't set up that way because I can get you, and I can kind of sort of win the game on turn two. So don't do that. It's just set up a different way." So he changed the way he set up a little bit. And he goes, "Oh, I think this is better," and it was better, but it still wasn't good enough. So I told him again, like, "No, I can still get you. Like, don't do that." So he changed it a second time, and he got it. The second after that one, then it was as good as he could get it. There was no way that he could set up which would prevent me from hitting him with an alpha strike, but it was the way that forced me. It required me to have to roll an 8 to hit an attack, which, if for anybody playing Heroclix long enough, that that's the number you want people to roll or higher. You want people to have to roll eights or higher in order to hit you because they're less, they're more likely to miss than to hit. So, um, so it forced me to bring up, my characters that had probability control in order to hit the attack. Um, so I did hit the 8 or better, but again, it forced me to bring up other support characters, which allowed him to, because he was using double Kongs, to just wreck the hell out of my team with Kongs. The only good thing about it is that fortunately he couldn't ever use Quake with Kong because it would have to target my Ghost Rider, and then I would trigger, shape change, and if I succeed, he would hit himself. So he couldn't ever Quake me that game. Um, but he still got me good. Um, oh boy. Ugh. This yawn is brought to you by Cliff Nut Butter Bars. No, well, we'll do that at the end. Oh yeah, I should bring that up. I should get that up. We are sponsored, not sponsored, but we're sponsored by Cliff Nut Butter Bars, and we have a special commercial for you at the end of this episode. Uh, all right. Well, anyway, so we're get back at it. We're against Caleb. Um, anyway, so he's double calling on me, and he's doing really well, and am feeling like I'm losing, and he's feeling like I'm losing, right? And there's actually a time where he it was I had two tokens on my Ghost Rider. If I succeed willpower, his Chair Panther was KO'd, and so I got my rivalry back. I could just say the word rivalry, and I could KO his Kong, his last Kong, because I KO'd the first one. Um, and then if I do, I win the game. Pretty much. There's nothing else that can significantly damage me for the rest of the game. So uh, I miss willpower. I re-roll it with Kevin. I miss the second one. Sucks. He comes back and he kills my Madison. And when he KOs my Madison because I missed both shape change rolls because she's standing next to Ghost Rider. But that at that moment I was like, oh, I've lost this game because my Madison was equipped with Bloodstone. She drops the Bloodstone. Kong is standing on the herb. He's constantly healing off of his stop click now. And now there's nothing on the board I have that can KO Kong. So I'm like, ugh, I lost the game now at this point. But before I get to the finish, I do also want to jump back a few turns because the coolest thing I have ever done, probably in any tournament, and I claim to have the only KO made by a Kevin not using rivalry because I know there's other ways of KOing things with Kevin using rivalry. Um, so uh we were both using Prime Elsa. Um, and I managed to get his Prime Elsa onto her last click. And there was a turn where I'm like, well, I kind of did everything else with all my other characters, but I have an extra action lying around, and I only have Kevin to give it to. So I double check with the judge, and like, hey, you can attack with characters that have 0 attack, right? Because I mean, way back in the day you couldn't, but I was just double checking, and they're like, yeah, you can make an attack. And I'd already used all my probs and all my rerolls. Both of us did, and so I was like, well, Kevin can see through everything. So I'll just roll a crit against you and I'll kill your Elsa. And I roll and I get a crit. I jumped out of my chair. I'm like, holy fucking shit. I was like screaming. And yeah, he didn't really, he didn't think that that moment was too amazing, in the moment. But it was pretty cool. So anyway, jumping back into towards the end of the game, um, he KOs my Madison. I'm like, ugh, this is kind of game over. So on my following turn, I remember looking at him and I was like, I think I'm losing this game. So give me a minute. And I said what I said the words were. I said, give me a minute to stall. I think we both understood was like, give me a minute to think. But I said the word stall. I was like, give me a minute to stall because I don't know if there's any other points I can score this game. Right. So like, let me just think about this for a minute because I'm just, you know, I was not expecting Madison to be KO'd. Like, it's like I needed to get either of those shape change rolls or either of the willpower rolls preceding it. It's like I have 4 rolls, any of them on a 1/3 chance of getting it, so whatever 2/3 to the 4th power is, that's the chance that I fail all of them. But, you know, um, so anyway, again, I wasn't anticipating that. So I'm like sitting there, like really thinking about this turn. And I'm like, well, all right, I guess I'm gonna use hypersonic speed and move over here and hit somebody else who wouldn't actually die. It was Ace that he brought in with his butterfly, and I was like, well, all right, I might as well just attack her because I could hit her, she could die, and then the butterfly comes in and I could, maybe hit butterfly with Kevin again on a crit hit, So who knows, right? I could come back that way. Um, but as I'm moving with hypersonic speed, uh time is called, his last action. So I was like, all right, well, all right, cool. That's the game. I'm thinking I lost. So we add up all the points and I'm winning. And I was like, oh. And I'm like, all right. So I didn't feel good about that because if I was winning the game and I was in the mindset of I am still winning, the game is almost over. So just run away. That's what I would be doing. You know what I'm saying? I know it's like quote unquote bitch mode in Heroclix, but that's what I would have had to do. The only thing that was scoreable for him on that turn, the only thing I had left was Ghost Rider. I had Kevin, who I don't think Kevin ever was KO'd, but even if Kevin was KO'd, he was certainly not KO'd twice that game. So Kevin got KO'd once that game. or or was removed from the board previously once that game. So we had like the internet argument token or whatever crap that was. The point is Kevin was not scoreable in a single turn. Um, then the only other equipment that I had on the board was Bloodstone because Madison just dropped it. If I knew that I was up in points, especially I was up by 10. So if I knew the only way that my opponent could tie me was by picking up my Bloodstone and hitting me with it, or just saying Quake and destroying it, I would have picked it up with Ghost Rider. Um, just I would just move action, pick it up, and then run away, and then same thing, Kevin, run away. Doesn't matter. Kevin can't be scored, and then the game would be over virtually at that point because there would be no points that that my opponent could score, that Caleb could score, and then I would win. But even still, that like that thought that whole process that I just laid out, that didn't really occur to me in the moment. I was still it just didn't sit right with me that I was like I took too long on my last turn, and I felt like he should have got another turn. Again, I didn't have that full thought process of realizing that, hey, look, even if he had another turn, he normally wouldn't have scored points if I had accurately kept track of who scored what as the game was going on. Um, then I would have realized that I was still ahead by 10. Um, so, but even if again, even if I didn't, then I was like, you know what? And he brought it up. He's like, well, I would have scored this Bloodstone. And I was like, yeah, fine, I'll give it to you. So we tied, and we rolled off, and he won the roll off. So I'm like, all right, you got it. Um, so to Caleb, I hope you remember how much I helped you that time, because if we ever face each other and I mess up, I would like 10 points. um, but no, but in all seriousness, it was a good game, and I do apologize for taking a few extra minutes on that last turn, because we both realized that or we both had the inclination that I was losing that game, and it was a surprise to both of us when we added up the points that I was ahead because we added up the points like 5 times. We're like, no, there's no way I can be ahead. And I was like, yeah, I'm ahead by 10. I was like, no way. And then I was like, no, I'm like, but that doesn't make. I'm like, that's not right because I'm like, you should have got an extra turn. And he's like, yeah, I would have got 10 points. I'm like, yep, you would have got 10 points again, not realizing I'm like, bro, like I could have just my move action, even during hypersonic speed, I could have picked it up, and then it wouldn't have made it scoreable for him. But you know, you live and you learn. Like I said, it was a good match. Uh, but next time, I don't know. Next time, maybe I don't help you out so much, Caleb. Maybe I don't say anything when you're setting up on turn one. No, I'm just messing. It's tough for me to um it's tough for me to not help out my opponent because I don't genuinely like winning the game um because my opponent like made a critical error. I like winning when my opponent plays their team to the best strategy available, and then just let the rolls decide. You know what I mean? That's kind of, I think that's the fun of the game is just dealing with the randomness that the rolls give you, and trying to adapt from there, but still playing the team and playing the characters to the best that to the best that they can. Um, but yeah, let's jump to what are we at, round four now. So I lose round three. And if I didn't lose round three, then Caleb would be going against my next opponent. But I lost. So I was now going against one of the players that I came with, one of our Hell crew. I was going against Miguel. And Miguel was playing the team that if I had owned a Chair Panther, a legacy Chair Panther with the card, um, he was playing the team that I would want to play, which was camo with the trick arrows. Uh, because the whole idea is that Chair Panther takes away the opposing Fortify and the opposing Mimic, and then um, uh, with a Zenzi Pog, you could give Camo Battle Fury if you'd like, but you basically just send Camo all the way across the map because that's what Camo does, and you hit somebody while carrying a terrain marker because your opponent won't be able to use their Mimic, and then you flip Trick Arrow in and you hit somebody usually for like 7 damage, 7 penetrating damage. So aside from some cases where an opponent has invincible that's not able to be outwit, of course they'll take 5 damage. Um, but it's really fun just kind of just deleting somebody and hitting them for 7. Or if your opponent doesn't have that kind of one critical figure that they need to kind of basically do the strategy that their team is built to do, then you can use Ares. Again, this is assuming your opponent doesn't take away Ares with their own Chair Panther. Um, but you can use Ares to do an Ares bomb and just hit everybody for 5 or 6 damage. So it's it's one of my kind of favorite Alpha Strike things to kind of do is just I'm gonna come over here. I'm just gonna delete somebody and uh, and then again, and then if you're not playing Chair Panther, or even if they are, if you're able to KO their Chair Panther, you can follow that up with you can bring out Beetlejuice, for example, to take away all of their free actions on their following turn, um, or or both. You can or you can use Cannon Event to uh, uh, you can trigger Cannon Event, excuse me, when the shark bystander that Camo creates is eventually KO'd, either by itself or through Beetlejuice. And then um, what I was saying here, yeah, you can trigger Cannon Event so that you can make Camo immune virtually. You can send him all the way across the map and make him immune right in your basically your opponent's starting area. And so it's like, hey, I just hit somebody for 7 penetrating damage and now I'm immune. I'm gonna do that again next turn. So I hope you're ready for that. So I really like that team. Um, but my team did have the tools to deal with it. But his team also had the tools to deal with my team. So the trick, the kind of this the angle that my team has to play against his is that I have to use my Prime Elsa to hit his camo before my Prime Elsa dies from the shark that camo generates. So most characters only deal 1 damage to Prime Elsa because they would be equipped. The shark bystander is never equipped generally, and so the shark will deal the full damage to Prime Elsa, meaning that Prime Elsa will just die in one hit from the shark. So, um, yeah, but that was kind of it. It was just the who's gonna get hit first kind of thing. Is Camo gonna get hit first from Prime Elsa and then lose his trick arrows, or is the shark going to KO Prime Elsa? Well, KO her technically twice because I have Death Metal Wonder Woman, but the shark could attack twice a turn, so it's who's gonna do that first. Um, and yeah, and it just went back and forth like that. Uh, in this particular game, I was able to take Camo's trick arrows, so there, there, it got to a point where I was able to get Camo on his last click, and he couldn't target the characters on my team that had Mystics, because the Mystics team ability would KO him, even though his team also was running Death Metal Wonder Woman. But that's besides the point. It's because he was planning on using the Nth Metal Trick Arrow, which would take away team abilities, and then Mystics wouldn't affect him, and then he could heal with Steel Energy, assuming he got rid of my Madison with the Bloodstone and all this stuff. So it was, again, is just um I think in terms of like even matchups, I think that was one of my most even matchups, even though the the match didn't end like, that close in terms of points. But I think it was again, I should be looking at it, but I don't remember exactly. And I don't even want to speculate on that because I think I'd be way off. But I think it was like a difference of like 50 or 60. That's my guess, but I'm not 100% sure. Um, but uh, but yeah, I think that was probably my closest matchup because in terms of teams, um, like I said, my closest match of the day was again, I think against Alex. It was round two. And then the closest team matchup was against Miguel. Um, just because it could go either way. Uh, with both teams playing perfectly, it could go either way. So I think that's kind of what makes a matchup even. Um, let's see. Next was like I said, it took round four, and then so I'm 3-1 going into round five. If I win it, I make top cut. So I'm going against a team called Stolen from the Prignanos, which the Prignanos, um, again, for those that you don't know, Logan Prignano won the championship at Adepticon, and the Prignanos are a family that are a part of our Hell crew. You've seen them and heard them. I shouldn't say you've seen them because they're not pictures, but you have heard them on our previous episodes. Um, the team was a very similar team. There's a slight change, but it's a very similar team to the team that Ricky Prignano used to win the Icy Regional up in Kenosha earlier this year. And just it was just kind of an unfortunate game for my opponent in that where just he his attack rolls were exceptionally poor, rolling threes and fours. And I was able to take the equipment away that he had on his characters with Prime Elsa, and kind of just went downhill from there. I mean, there's the turn that he had that was very critical in him, coming back into the game. Because my first attack was basically just Ghost Rider hitting his Chair Panther just to force him to flip, fortify, and then his follow up turn was a series. Well, I also trick arrowed his Prodegaton, his Timebreakers, and his Kevin, but those aren't required to be on the board for him to win the game. It was just if he, uh, he had, like I said, he had the Juggernaut from Collector's Trove, he had Prime Colossus. It's just, it's kind of like if he just hits with those characters, um, he can come back into the game. And like I said, he rolled threes and fours, so it was just, kind of one of those moments where fate would step in and go, no, okay, sorry, you built a really good team. Your team is really solid. It's really reliable. Um, but it's not going to win this game. So, um, so like I said, unfortunately for him, it just kind of went downhill from there. But that game put me into top cut. Uh, Top Cuts games. The first game I was against Miles Kane. He was playing an interesting team with Poison Ivy. So most Poison Ivy's teams, in my opinion, aren't very interesting because they all play exactly the same, which is I'm going to sit in my starting area and not move and put a bunch of barrier out and then just damage you through the plant markers. Um, but he was playing Prime Spider Ham and uh, 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 with the same package of Man Thing and uh, Poison Ivy and stuff like that. But like I said, I was playing Prime Spider Ham, and he was playing Spot. So so he was uh anticipating, kind of actually going out into the middle of the field, hitting somebody, and then yoinking them back with Spot to bring them into the, what's called like a kill box in Heroclix. Just kind of it's basically what it means is you take it's a strategy where you take one or two or a small group of your opponent's characters, and you just from their side of the field, and you place them virtually like in your starting area, like right in front of your characters, and then you just beat up on them until they're dead. Um, And so he was able to do that to my Wonder Woman. Um, and then uh, uh, after that, though, I was able to use the trick arrows to KO his poison ivy. So therefore, like my characters like Kevin and my other support characters could kind of stay back and just not instantly die from him saying the word poison. Um, and then yeah, it was just kind of there was a couple back and forth turns where it could have gone either way, but eventually I did start getting the upper hand and I did win that game. Um, but we talked after the match, and there was a couple things that he did that I think could be improved upon, and would allow him to maybe get a better advantage on me, because I don't think I had a good matchup against him overall. So like I said, I think I got lucky um, by going against him, and uh, and especially because I also did not go first that game, so I think I got doubly lucky. But all credit to him. He got Spider Ham into the top cut, um, and he did teach me whether or not he realized that he did teach me a couple things about the character Spot, which made him it made him one of my favorite characters in the game right now. I don't think it's my most favorite character in the game, but he is definitely up there. So be on the lookout for me for using that guy in the near future. So uh then now I'm in the final four, so I'm top four. I'm up against Azrith, and I do on paper have the advantage against his team, but a very similar way of on paper Miles had the advantage against me, and he didn't win, but on paper I had the advantage against Azrith, and I also didn't win. So as you know, I guess I've said before, spoiler alert, I did get fourth place. Um, so his team was all about hitting you with abilities that prevented you from using powers. But you're like, but wait, Matt, you're using a Ghost Rider team. How is that? How'd you, aren't you just using all of your powers? And you're like, yeah, you would think that, but um, he was playing uh, time breakers, of course. And as I mentioned before, I very quickly learned that if you're if you're playing Ghost Rider and your opponent has time breakers, to KO them as quickly as you can, which I identify that so I went first, and on my turn two, I I usually like talk out, my turns out loud, and I'm like, well, obviously I have to KO your time breakers, and he also had a 2x1 elevated terrain marker that he would use with his caveman Wally West to carry up and could place it underneath my Ghost Rider, so that could also prevent him from being adjacent to other friendly characters of mine. So I'm like, all right, I got to deal with both of these things. That yawn is also sponsored by Cliff Nut Butter Bars. Um, you can tell that I haven't had a Cliff Nut Butter Bar because I am yawning. I am tired. If I had a Cliff Nut Butter Bar right now, I would be energized. But getting back in the matchup. So yeah, I clearly identified. I'm like, yep, these are the two things I have to deal with. Got to deal with this elevated terrain, and I got to deal with these time breakers. And in the moment, I obviously wanted to end that turn with characters being adjacent to Ghost Rider, but for some reason I was like, I can't figure out the way that I can make everybody end their turn also adjacent to Ghost Rider. It feels like I have to like separate my characters. And if I have to separate my characters, then it doesn't matter if I KO his time breakers or if I remove this elevated terrain. Like if my characters are not going to be adjacent to Ghost Rider anyway, then I might as well just target somebody else. So, but that was a mistake. It turns out that I could have dealt with everything in one turn, and I could have ended them adjacent to Ghost Rider, um, if I had realized that, duh, if I flip the trick arrow, the big arrow, it uses Quake, and Quake destroys terrain markers, and I could have destroyed the elevated terrain marker with the big arrow's Quake. Um, and then I could have cleaned up the time breakers that he had with other attacks. Um, so yeah, so I made that mistake, and he 100% capitalized on that mistake, and started winning the game. So um, I think we both at that moment kind of, or not sure, I shouldn't say at that moment, but over the next turn or two, we realized the only way that I could possibly win or possibly come back into the game would be as if I had enough turns. So, as I mentioned before, Ghost Rider is virtually untargetable. Because if you target Ghost Rider and I succeed on my shape change roll, you either KO yourself in some cases, or uh, you hit yourself enough so that Ghost Rider can KO you on the following turn. And just it basically would score me points. So that's not an option. So he realizes that, I realize that, and Azrith, again, if you're listening, I was not doing it on purpose, because in the sense that I don't like you, or I was, trying to uh make you play bad or whatever, but in the sense, but I start jabbing him. I start chattering, and during his turns, I'm occasionally saying things like, yeah, 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 take 6 minutes to do all your side steps that aren't going to do anything. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Pick up all of my terrain markers and hit me with time breakers that have 0 damage. Oh, yeah, 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 sure, sure. Do that. Don't ever attack anybody. Don't attack Ghost Rider with a damage value greater than 0. That would be a huge waste of your time. And so I start again, just chattering about how, the only way. I'm like, look, you got to give me turns, man. That's the only way I can win. If you want to take 20 minutes of your turn, go ahead. Go ahead, take 20 minutes, and then you automatically win. We could just end the game right now. Um, so I I probably I don't know. I should, maybe I shouldn't say probably. I most likely got to the level of pretty annoying uh by me saying those things, on a fairly frequent basis. Um, to the point where he did eventually come back with like, "Hey, man, I don't appreciate you, criticizing all the actions that I'm taking, because I am going to take all of the actions I can take on my turn." And to his point, he's 100% right, not only in the fact that he can do that, but he should. There's there's there are possibilities where him sidestepping 2 squares away from me prevents me from scoring a time breaker, for example, right? Um, so 100% he should be using all the actions that he can, both costed and free, to try to prevent me from scoring as many points as he can, stop me from scoring on my turn. So, uh, but again, back to my point, we both know, like, at the end of the day, it's about the number of turns I get. Because Ghost Rider is never going to be scored this game. I was like, so if we have an infinite number of turns, then just we shake hands right now, because Ghost Rider is never going to be scored. But um, but since we don't, then uh, you know, he's got the advantage. Um, because he starts, separating people from Ghost Rider, wiping them out. He's got a bunch of good attackers on the team. A lot of the characters that he has on his team are some of my favorite characters in the game currently. Um, Aside from Ghost Rider, Ghost Rider is my favorite character in Modern Age right now. Um, my next favorite would probably be King Elsa and Deadpool, or I'm sorry, uh, King Deadpool and Elsa. I said King Elsa and Deadpool. Am I getting dyslexic? No, no, no. But yeah, King Deadpool and Elsa is probably my second favorite. But he's also playing Caveman Wally West, who I don't know if I would put him as one of my favorite characters, but I just like him so much. I like Caveman Wally West so much, as a character, what he can do for his point cost, and I love that longsword is free on him for an equipment, and it just elevated him into the meta. I just love him so much. So he's definitely like in my top 10 favorite characters of the game right now. But besides the point, uh, yeah. So we're going back and forth. Again, I'm just chattering to him, being annoying. Um, I'm playing the heel card again because again, I don't dislike Azrith at all. He's a great guy. He's a great player. And even as I'm doing all of this to him, he's making very intelligent moves. He knows how to pilot his team very well. He knows how to score points against my team very well. So he did what he needed to do. That being said, also I was also doing what I needed to do in the sense that I potentially, I can't know this for certain, but I did get enough turns to eventually tie the game. So uh, the game was tied up until his last turn, and on his last turn, he scored points. And then last action was called sometime after, and whatever. Um, so yeah, I mean, so not only did he capitalize on my mistake, but I played the kind of the hand that I was dealt afterwards, and I was as annoying as I could be without causing the judges that were standing there and watching the game to tell me to shut up. So I wasn't at that level of annoying, but I was just getting there. I was just trying to toe that line. Uh, and it got me to tie the game. But of course, and then on the last turn, he was able to score some more points and get the victory. So all credit to him. Uh, but um, it's so strange because I feel like, well, next time I'll if I ever face that kind of strategy, I'll know what to do. But then I'm sitting there at the other end of like, well, if I was playing his team, and I would know exactly how to position to prevent that, because that's the other thing is the position he had his characters initially and that terrain marker initially, um, it didn't allow, or it allowed me to potentially remove all of them in one turn. I was like, man, if he positioned absolutely perfectly, uh, I wouldn't be able to, and then I think I'm actually at a disadvantage against that matchup because he's got two silver bullets against my Ghost Rider team. So maybe it just at that point I just have to play lightning fast every turn and because my turn two did take a while because I was really thinking about it. I'm like, oh man, how the heck do I deal with this? And I came to the wrong conclusion of, well, I guess I can't deal with this, so I got to do something else. And then I had to start thinking about what my something else was. Um, so yeah, it's one of those things like, yeah, maybe the way I had to beat his team overall, if both of us played perfectly, is just to play extremely quickly. Because if I play extremely quickly, then again, I think Ghost Riders is unscorable. Even if he scores everything else on my team, I can score enough to to win the game. Who knows? Who knows? Um, so yeah, like I said, I lost that game, got fourth place. And then you know, everybody knows the story that Logan got first place. He beat Azrith in the final. So um, so yeah, so fortunately for me, because I made top cut and I also got far enough, I didn't lose the first game and all that stuff, blah 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 blah. I didn't sign up for any other events on Sunday, because we were watching the finals match, because obviously Logan winning the championship was an incredible moment. Um, and you know what? Let's just talk about that moment and what it means for HeroClix in general. Um, Logan is a 14-year-old kid, and I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, or I'm not trying to put him down, but it's always just a kid. I mean that in a positive light because he's a 14-year-old kid who figured out how to pilot a strong team very well, used it to win what I would argue to be one of the most competitive events of the year. I mean, virtually everybody playing in the Adepticon main event um, could have won the event. I mean, I don't think anybody was bringing a team that they were just, well, this is what I just kind of whipped up. I mean, again, there could have been, but I didn't see everybody's teams, and I didn't look on HC units to see what everybody was playing. Um, but this is a serious competitive event, and I think anybody who's ever been to this Adepticon or last year's Adepticon will agree and say like the players that are signing up for this event are kind of cream of the crop players. Um, versus when you go to events such as like Worlds, for example, a lot, I think like what it was like say 200 people sign up for Worlds. There's not like 200 people in Heroclix. You can have 200 good players, but there's not 200 cream of the crop players. Um, and I mean that's just the way it shakes out for any game, really. Whether it be even in sports, like there's not 200 potential MVPs in anything. You know what I mean? But but when you're at Adepticon, it's like just 32 players. You're like, oh, well, okay, hold on a second now. So these 32 players, again, there might be some that aren't as good as the others, but for the most part, all of these players are good. These all of these players are players that come from, wherever they're coming from, they're one of, if not the best player in their local group. So again, this competition is serious, which just highlights Logan's accomplishment even more. As the champion. Not only did I said not only did he win, but he won in a high competitive environment. And he won, I would say, with flying colors. So he did lose a single game in Swiss, which was against Azra. He faces him again in the finals, and he beats him. So he avenges his only loss. And in terms of like a constructed game, it's all weekend. I mean, and even in team sealed, which I didn't mention because I didn't participate in that event. In team sealed, Logan went 3-0 in that event as well, with a perfect 900-point score. Every win he got in the modern age event was 300 points. He was just sweeping everybody. It was is mind blowing. So again, it just goes to show you how well he thought about this team. Um, and I don't want to like take the spotlight, too much away from Logan, but the play group that Logan has, and I would say that we have, that Hel has, the play group that we have is extremely supportive, and I think that this result just proves that point beyond a shadow of a doubt, in the sense that you can be a 14-year-old kid, you can be a child, you can be a kid, you can be a young person, doesn't matter, and you can want to play this game and you can want to play it at the highest level. Like there are plenty of groups that you can join, that can claim like, oh, we can do that. But it's like we got it. We got the bread and butter right here. You know, we have the proof is in the pudding right there. Bam. You want to learn? We can teach you. We can show you the best strategies that we can think of. And at the end of the day, you still got to be a good pilot for whatever team you build. And but we can give you all the tools, to get to the top. So it just, again, I feel like I'm starting to talk myself in circles here, but to try to lasso, uh, these thoughts together, let me try to cap it off this way. So I'm really proud, both of Logan and of everybody else. His dad, his uncle, and Miguel, especially when we're in the hotel room, the nights before, we're just we're going over his team. We know he's in top cut. We're going over his potential matchups, what all of his opponents that he could possibly be faced up against, what they could do, what he's going to do when he sets up his team. Just all of this, and we're practicing again and again and again on what to do for game setup, what your turn one and turn two is, all of this stuff. And it's just, it's so, it's rewarding to see, that practice and that preparation pay off. Um, and like I said, and especially in someone so young. So I'm hoping that this victory for Logan, I hope that other young players really consider um, jumping into HeroClix and and I'm not even talking just, to try to get into the, top competitive level. But just I hope that more young players jump into HeroClix, and like I said, and see this as a potential stepping stone, because it's like, you know, I- we were all young kids once. That those are the buttons I was handing out during Adepticon. They said was kids because we was kids. We was kids. We were all kids at one point. We were all Logan at one point. And when we were all 14, boy, we we wished we could dream like, oh man, imagine I win a big event like that. And and this kid is living that dream. Um so I think it, while we don't want to steal his thunder too much, it's just, we will edge in there and use a little bit, a little sprinkle of vicarious experiences and live it through Logan. Um, Again, very very proud moment, and not to even mention, I made a Facebook post about this and everything like that too, and I mentioned it there, but for for the foreseeable future, and when I say that, I mean for as long as I live and probably for as long as Adepticon will exist and as long as HeroClix events are being held at Adepticon, Logan is probably, very likely to be the youngest champion, youngest HeroClix champion at Adepticon of all time, forever. Um, which again, it's just, if you're a young person and you're out there, or if you know any young people, that are interested, that you think they could be interested, um, come on, bring them out. Let's see what they got. You can't. I feel like if anything, Logan just proved that there's no excuses. It's not, oh, I'm a young guy and I don't, and everybody else is an adult and and it's like, yeah, it can be intimidating, but with the right group, with the right support structure, um, success is definitely within reach. So yeah, it's just really good to see somebody in our group do well. Um, we're really happy for him, really happy for Rick and Matt. I think they're very proud dads, very proud uncles. Um, but let's just kind of take a step back now and just do final quick. I always say quick, but nothing's ever quick when I'm talking, isn't it? I should stop using that word. But let's take a step back and give overview kind of comments of the entire Adepticon event as a whole, and see what we can think about here. So overall, let's just compare it, for example, to last year's Adepticon. Overall, definitely better. Definitely better. I think anybody saying anything different is out of their minds. This year's Adepticon overall was better than last year's. The biggest thing that pushed that needle in the better direction was their integration and their use of HC units. So HC units, in my opinion, and I think most other people's opinions, it's the site, it's the method of setting up and running events. I think if you're using any other method currently, unless you want to make your own, that's better. But I think any other method currently is inferior. So, uh, finding your matchups, knowing what table you're going to sit at, knowing when your events are scheduled, it's just it's just a breeze compared to last year's Adepticon. And the thing is, last year's Adepticon wasn't that bad. It was, stand in line at a registration desk, say, "Hey, I'm here. Hey, I signed up for this event, so mark me down as being here." And then they would print out like a sheet of paper and everybody would stand around it and you would look for your name on it and find out which table you're, sitting at and stuff. You know, but I mean, it's not the end of the world. I've been at plenty of other events where they've done exactly the same thing, but I mean, that's, it's almost kind of like making fire with rubbing two sticks together, compared to how the events were run this year. Um, let's see. Judging for this year overall better. I think the crew of PJ, of Anthony, and of Lucas is a very solid team. I think all of them are extremely knowledgeable in the rules. Um, I don't want to. I don't want to um, toot my own horn, but there's a couple things that uh, when my opponent was asking, my opponent would had a rules question, and I would give them the answer, and they didn't believe me. So of course they call a judge because of course you should never believe your opponent. But the judge would come over and they'd be like, no, it. They would say like, no, I'm wrong. They'd be like, no, my opponent is right. It does, I'll just bring up the example. I won't say who, but I'll just bring up the example. So it was during game setup. First player, places their terrain markers first, and then second player places their terrain markers. Of course, most people know that you can't place terrain markers on transition squares, and this includes the any elevated terrain that you would be placing as a terrain marker. Um, I think most people know that. The rules were also changed since Worlds of last year, where I think I was one of the people that made him change it, where the terrain markers that you are currently placing, if they would uh, cause any transition squares to be next to other terrain markers, then you can't place them in that square. So they added that rule in since last year. But besides the point, there is also a rule that says you cannot place terrain markers during game setup on other markers. Uh, that is not very well known. And again, I'm not saying any names, but the judges that came over also didn't know that. They were like, no, it's just for transition squares. And I'm like, no, 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 there's transition squares. And during game setup, you also can't place them on markers. And they're like, oh, okay, well, like, let us look in the rule book real quick and find that while you continue to set up the rest of your team. Um, so why am I bringing this up? It's just like, hey, maybe I'm good enough to be a judge. No, I'm not saying it. I mean, I know the rule book very well. But I don't know. I don't know if I would like to be a judge at a big event like that. I just who knows? Who knows? Maybe one day. But anyway, so like I said, but judging was definitely overall better. I think I think the three of them, uh, compared to any other judge team that I've been at a big event previously, aside from maybe Worlds, but like Worlds is kind of like the same judge team. Um, uh, but it's like I said, that team is probably the best that I've had. I mean, yeah, it's definitely the best that I've had. Let's see, other things at a high level. Other things at a high level. Pricing. Okay, so the one thing that was a um obvious to me shift in pricing. So compared to last year's Adepticon. So last year's Adepticon, in my opinion, the best bang for your buck by far were supercharged sealed events. Why? Well, because they charged you $40 for entry fee, and every player, regardless of placement, uh, won two LEs. Um, so yes, that means that even if you went 0 and 3 and got eighth place, you would still get two LEs, and one of the LEs that you got would still be a newer one. So they would last year as Adepticon they would put out 16 LEs, eight of them being newer ones, and eight of them being older ones. So virtually everybody got a newer one, an older one, but obviously eighth place, whatever newer one that you got would be the least desirable one. But still, you would get two of them. Um, this year they charged $45, so they increased the price by $5, and every player only got one LE. So they virtually cut the pricing in half. So they charging you more, giving you less. Ouch. So I think that is for me if there's a highlight for a negative pain point anywhere over the weekend, it's that. It's that supercharged sealed cost $5 more and they gave out half the pricing. What the hell, guys? But then but then you look at uh the team sealed event and you compare that to last year, and the team sealed event, I really liked the way that they ran it, where it was just kind of, hey, everybody, that's just going to be 3 rounds and then we're done. And there's no champion of team sealed. There's no uh top cut of anything. It's just 3 rounds and we're done. And then based on your team's combined record, in the sense, of every round that at least two of your players earned a win, um, based on your team's combined record, then that's we have a set amount of prizing to give out to everybody. And if you won like 2 of the 3 rounds, basically, you would get an astounding amount of prizes, like a very generous amount of prizing for Team Seal. It was like making top cut in the 300 modern. Like everybody would get one of every single LE, and then like a chase booster on top of it or something. It was wild. It was wild. Um, so it was very clear to me that they, if anything, just shifted the pricing from supercharged sealed to team sealed, which is like, boy, and I wish I knew that beforehand, because we tried to cancel our supercharged sealed event for that day and then enter the team sealed event. But the Adepticon staff said that they were not able to exchange any events or refund any events or transfer the um, money that was from one event to another, because at the end of the day we were just trying to give them more money, because these team sealed event cost more than the than a supercharged sealed event would. So um I should say even more than 3 supercharged sealed events would, because if it's 3 people in team sealed. So that was a little unfortunate that one, that we couldn't switch, and two, that, like I said, that supercharged sealed pricing was half the amount that it was last year for $5 more. But again, I can't, and I'm saying that from a position of somebody who did win 2 out of their 4 supercharged sealed events. Um, so even though I did get 2 chase boosters out of the deal, I don't think uh, overall, I don't think supercharged sealed would be worth it for $45 overall. I totally get the point of like, hey, you're still getting 3 boosters, but from the standpoint of, from my personal point of view, where it's like, hey, look, like I kind of already have everything from these sets, so I'm not really looking for anything. So even if like, oh, I pulled a chase, like, okay, congratulations. Like I'm not planning on keeping it, but so it's not really worth anything to me. Oh, I could sell it for like 15, $20. Doesn't matter. It's like, okay, who cares? Um, so yeah, but 300 modern pricing was very good. Again, I made top cut, so I can kind of um I'm biased, I should say, when I give that answer. But regardless, I still think, just for that top cut, they gave out good pricing, because it's like one of every LE and all that stuff. But it's, when you compare the pricing for the 300 modern versus pricing for the team sealed, it's wild to me that you can go like 2-1 in team sealed and get the same amount of pricing as making top 8 in 300 modern. That's wild to me. But to me, that just goes to show you how juiced team sealed pricing was. Team sealed this year was like supercharged sealed events last year. The pricing was so juiced. I mean, hopefully moving forward, we get every event to be that juiced. But that was if you were going to compete in one event this year at Adepticon for Heroclix, it was team sealed. That was the event. If you want, because for in 3 hours, you could get all of the LEs and everything and just leave and be like, I have one of everything. I'm done. So in a single event, it's crazy. Um, let's see. I don't know what other big takeaways. Oh, well, the new venue. Yeah, the new venue is great. Obviously, uh I don't prefer the new venue over the old one because the old one was closer to my house, and I hate that um that goes back into the old adage of like, oh well, if you could run a big Heroclix event anywhere, where would it be? And everyone's like, I would, it would be 10 minutes away from my house. It's like, well, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Uh, but other than that, just the venue itself was great. The Baird Center is good. Has plenty of space to clearly separate the events that are actually being run from the vendors that are selling stuff. Previously, like the vendors and the events would kind of they would be all on the same floor. They'd be divided in sections, but it was just they'd be all on the same floor, and it was just so noisy. Um, but everything here has its own floor. So the vendor floor, which is always uh, the noisiest, it's on its own. It's got its own place. And the event floor that we were playing the games at, uh, while there people were talking and stuff, but it was nowhere near as noisy as it was last year because last year I had to, and virtually everybody almost had to scream everything. Like it wasn't conscious that you were screaming, but you could tell like I am talking very loud all the time just so that the person sitting across the table can hear me. And it got to the point like I had to take like cough drops and things of that nature, like virtually like every hour because I was just talking like I had to talk so loudly. Um, whereas that wasn't the case this year. I did have to take some just because, as with anybody, you talk so much and eventually cotton mouth and all that blah 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 blah, and then you gotta have something to get in your mouth. But it was definitely better than it was last year for that. Um, and then also like getting in and out of the building was easier, I think. Um, like the distance between the entrance and the actual event. Actually, that might have been similar. That might have been similar. Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, it was pretty similar. But it didn't seem as congested um as it was last year. I think last year, like, it's kind of like from the moment that you stepped in the building, it was like registration is right there. So there's usually always a line of people, and it's kind of like you had to like navigate around them. Whereas this time, it's like, okay, registration, you have to go all the way upstairs. Uh, and then, you can come back downstairs to do all your events. So that on following days, you don't have to go up. You can just stay downstairs and walk right into the event hall. And again, there's just plenty of space for everybody. So yeah, I don't know what else to talk about overall. So let's get into our commercial for our sponsor for this episode and every episode of Hell Talk, which is nut butter. Do you like butter in your mouth? You will. And I'm not talking about Land O'Lakes, baby. I'm talking about Cliff Nut Butter. Cliff Nut Butter bars are the perfect quick and easy snacks that eviscerate whatever shred of hunger lingers in your body. Cliff Nut Butter is packed with up to 10% of your daily recommended intake of protein. See, ladies, we weren't lying when we say our nut butter is packed with protein. Cliff Nut Butter is made only with USDA organic and non-GMO ingredients and is a fantastic treat which provides sustained energy for moderate to high intensity activities like hiking or biking. Our legal department wants to make clear that this is the nut butter which comes before those moderate to high intensity activities. So what are you waiting for? Slide into your local grocery store and grab some Cliff Nut Butter bars today. All right. Thanks to everybody for sticking around this episode. Yeah, I will talk to you guys later.